Welcome to Dreamy Tales, your bedtime haven. Prepare to embark on a journey of tranquility and relaxation. I'm here to weave enchanting stories that will gently guide you into a restful night's sleep. Subscribe and let the soothing whispers of Dreamy Tales be your nightly companion. Moonlight Magic. Chapter 1. A Moonlit Discovery. Carmen peered out her bedroom window at the full moon shining brightly above the dark forest. She loved looking for moonlit adventures under the silvery glow among the trees. After her mother bid her good night, Carmen slipped out of bed and quietly pulled on her boots. Moving stealthily through the moonbeams, Carmen made her way into the edge of the woods. The forest came alive at night with mysterious sounds drifting through the shadows. Carmen always felt safe exploring, knowing the trees and creatures that called this place home. As she entered a moonlit glade filled with blueberry bushes, something caught Carmen's ears. She paused, listening closely, and heard the most beautiful music floating on the night air. It sounded like wind chimes and glittering bells all mingled together in a lovely song. Curiosity sparked. Carmen followed the entrancing sounds further into the forest. Pushing aside low branches heavy with ripe berries, she crept silently toward the music's source. Suddenly the trees parted, and Carmen gasped at the magical sight before her. In a moon-washed clearing stood beautiful beings with gossamer wings like rainbow spider silk. They were the fairy folk that lived deep in the woods, keeping to themselves, but always watching over the forest and its inhabitants. The fairies danced together in a circle beneath the stars, filling the glade with their joyous music. Their wings shimmered with colors like pink rose petals or green new leaves. Golden dust seemed to float all around them as they leapt and twirled through the moonlight. Carmen crouched low in the bushes, enchanted by the dancing. She had heard tales of the fair folk from her father, but never dreamed she might see them. Their glittering costumes and lights in the clearing were like something from a dream. Carmen watched with wide eyes, not wanting to miss a moment of their magic. The fairy dancers moved as one, always holding hands to stay connected in their swirling circle. Carmen counted 12 magical creatures lost in their joyful ritual under the moon. She smiled, hugging her knees, finally seeing the elusive friends of the forest up close on this blissful moonlit night. Chapter 2. Friends of the Forest. Carmen watched the fairy circle for what seemed like hours, enchanted by their elegant movements in the moonlight. Their bare feet kicked up dew as they twirled across the soft grass, causing droplets to sparkle like gems. The music gradually slowed until the fairies stilled, joining hands and bowing to one another with wide smiles. Carmen could see their playful giggles in the moonbeams even from her hiding spot. As the fairies began to chatter and float about the clearing, she realized this was her chance to count them properly. Peering closely, Carmen started with the tallest fairy dressed in silvery robes, like the moon itself. "One," she whispered with a grin. Next to her stood an emerald fairy, no larger than Carmen's palm, adorned in leafy accents that matched her wings. 2. A copper fairy flitted by in browns as rich as fallen autumn, followed by a sunny fairy with an orange and yellow gown stitched with tiny golden flowers. Carmen counted on silently, taking in each fairy's unique design. 12 fairies chattered merrily, except for one sitting alone near the tree line. While the others socialized, this fairy stared sadly at the grass, hugging her knees much like Carmen. But unlike the children playing in the moonlight, This fairy's wings drooped gray as a rainy day. Worried by the fairy's lonely frown, Carmen slowly emerged from the bushes. She walked forward on quiet feet, hesitating briefly before speaking up. "Excuse me, are you all right?" The gray fairy started at the sound of her voice, whipping around with wide eyes. "Oh, who said that?" She peered into the shadows, where Carmen stood, twisting her hands nervously. Stepping into the moonlight, Carmen gave a shy smile. "I'm Carmen. I saw you were upset and thought I'd ask if I could help." The fairy tilted her head curiously, green eyes blinking in surprise at the human child. Carmen knew fairies avoided humans, but something told her this fairy needed a friend. Kneeling in the soft grass, she waited patiently for a response, hoping her company might lift the fairy's gray wings once more. Chapter 3. A Lonely Fairy. The fairy stared at Carmen, considering her unusual offer. After living so long apart from humans, her caution warred with her lonely heart. Yet this child seemed different. Her smile held only kindness. "May I know your name, fairy friend?" Carmen asked gently. The fairy's wings fluttered, a timid shade of aqua returning. "I am Nyla," she replied, grasping a long braid shyly. Carmen smiled wider, happy to make her acquaintance. "Why are you sad, Nyla?" she asked. Nyla's glow dimmed again as she gazed at the dancing circle of fairies. "I have no partner for our moon ritual," she admitted. "The others always find a mate, but I'm left out, dancing alone in the trees." Carmen's heart filled with sympathy. She thought for a moment before making a suggestion. "I am no fairy, Nyla, but would you allow me to dance with you? Just this once, to lift your spirits?" Nyla gasped in surprise, but pleasure soon dawned in her green eyes. "Oh, would you really dance with me, Carmen?" With a cheerful nod, Carmen stood and held out her hand in invitation. Blushing aqua, Nyla placed her tiny palm in Carmen's and fluttered up to match her height. Carmen led her into the clearing, where the other fairies now gathered flowers. Their gazes flickered with curiosity at the girl child in their midst. As the fairies began to dance again, Carmen swayed softly with Nyla under the stars. She spun and laughed with the joyful fairy, glad to see Nyla's wings regain their shine of springtime moss. The other fairies smiled in approval at their circle, now complete. Nyla clung to Carmen's hand happily, no longer caring what her people thought. For the first time she belonged, and all because one lonely night led to an unexpected friend. Their dance would live on in moonlit memory, a reminder of how kindness can blossom where sadness once stood. Chapter 4. A Magical Gift. The fairies' music swelled up once more as Carmen danced with Nyla under the full moon. They twirled amongst the circle hand in hand, Nyla's wings aglow like new leaves in springtime. Where sadness had clouded her before, now joy lifted her as light as thistledown on the breeze. As they danced, Carmen couldn't help but marvel at Nyla's delicate dress of moss and flower petals. "Look at your skirt," she giggled, giving it a gentle spin. Nyla blushed, pleased by the human child's interest in her people's ways. "You dance so beautifully," Carmen replied. "I'm glad we're friends." The circle of fairies watched the unlikely pair with smiles, enchanted by their blossoming bond. Even after so long apart from humans, something about this curious girl warmed their secret hearts this moonlit eve. Her kindness needed rewarding, with a gift befitting such magic found in the forest. As the music slowed, and the dancers bowed to one another once more, Nyla took Carmen's hand in both of hers. "Thank you for dancing with me," she said softly. Your friendship has given me such joy on this night. I wish to grant you a token of our meeting that will last always. Nyla's eyes gleamed emerald as she summoned her magic. It swirled around her like emerald sparkles until a small object appeared cradled in her palms. She offered it to Carmen with a sweet smile. This moonstone will glow whenever you think of the fairies and our dance. So we may meet again in moonlight memories. Carmen gasped at the crystal's pure light, smooth as polished silver, yet seeming to hold captured moonbeams within. She thanked Nyla earnestly as the magical stone warmed her hands. For always remembering this magical night with my new friend, she said, embracing the fairy gently. Nyla hugged her back, knowing their bond was sealed. As the moon rose higher, the ritual came to an end. The fairies gathered their moonlit gifts to return home amongst the trees. Nyla hugged Carmen one last time, her aqua glow bright with promises to meet again. Then, with glittering farewells, the fairy folk vanished into the forest night, leaving behind only memories under the watchful light of the moon. Chapter 5. Sharing the Magic. Carmen held the moonstone close all the way home, feeling its soothing pulse against her palm. She couldn't wait to show her family the magical gift from the fairy Nyla. Though dusk was drawing near, Carmen hoped her parents and brother were still awake. Slipping through the back door of their cozy cottage, Carmen called out into the shadows. "Mama, Papa, I'm home!" She heard murmurs from the parlor and followed the sounds with an eager smile. Sitting by the fire were Carmen's mother and father folding laundry, with her little brother Mateo dozing against Papa's side. As soon as they saw Carmen's excited face, they knew an adventure must be shared. "Come, tell us of your night," Mama said, patting the rug invitingly. Carmen settled down and began her tale, catching their amazed looks as she recounted her discovery of the fairy circle dance. She told of counting each magical creature and finding Nyla in need of a friend's company. Mama's eyes shone with wonder at the thought of dancing amongst the fair folk. And look, Carmen presented the glowing moonstone, filling the room with its luminous sheen. Nyla gave it to me, so I'll never forget our magical meeting. Mateo stirred at the light, murmuring sleepy questions that Papa patiently answered. Soon he was wide awake, captivated by Carmen's gift from the forest friends he had only heard of in stories. As Carmen's family sat together by firelight, their hearts swelled with love and pride for this adventurous daughter of the woods. To find such friendship and magic in a single night was a blessing to cherish always. And through Carmen's joyful story, her family felt the magic too, knowing the fairy folk watched over them as well as the forest they all held dear. With yawns and hugs, it was finally time for the little ones to head to their bedrooms. But when Carmen lay down at last, Moonstone clutched close. Sleep was the furthest thing from her mind. She smiled as dreams of dancing fairies floated amongst moonbeams long into the night. Chapter 6. Moonlight Memories. The next morning, Carmen opened her eyes to sunlight streaming through her window. She yawned and stretched, still remembering faded dreams of moonlit magic. Rolling onto her side, Carmen's gaze fell upon the moonstone resting on her dresser. Its glow caught the sunbeams now, transforming within from silvery sheen to rosy dawn. Carmen smiled, picking it up to feel its steady warmth against her palm once more. As long as she had this token from Nyla, she would always carry memories of their dance in the forest glade. After dressing, Carmen hurried downstairs to join her family for breakfast. She helped Mama set the table while Papa stirred porridge over the fire and Mateo played nearby. When everyone had eaten, Papa declared it was time for Carmen's daily lessons. Carmen didn't mind the lessons too much, unless it was one of Mateo's storytelling turns. Today, her brother chose to recount Carmen's adventure from the previous night, acting out each fairy character with gusto. Their parents laughed warmly at Mateo's performance, which Carmen had to admit was rather entertaining. Once lessons ended, Carmen played outdoors with Mateo in the forest, clearing by their home. She spun and leaped like the fairy dancers under the dappled sunlight, the moonstone ever at her side. After tiring themselves, the siblings lay in the grass, watching puffy clouds drift by. That evening, as dusk fell, Carmen sat by the open window gazing at the first stars while brushing out her long hair. The moon peeked through wispy clouds, waxing fuller each night. Carmen lifted the moonstone, sighing happily as its glow strengthened alongside Luna's light above the trees. A whisper, sounding like chimes, swept faintly on the night breeze. "I'll see you again soon, dear friend." Carmen smiled, convinced the voice belonged to Nyla. She bid the forest good night, knowing the magic was never far from her heart. Then, with crystal in hand and fairy folk watching over her dreams, Carmen drifted off to moonlit sleep once more. The end. As the stars twinkle above, it's time for Dreamy Tales to bid you good night. May the soothing echoes of our stories linger in your dreams, offering you a serene escape. Until we meet again under the moonlit sky, sleep tight and sweet dreams.